it seems almost like I can't believe that they actually not only said it, but I mean they said it in a court case. They said it with someone typing it. They said it like that's not something like I would expect someone to have a recording like the Donald Sterling where he said some things to his girlfriend and she recorded it without him knowing it. They said this in court that look, we don't have to be impartial. We don't even know what impartial means, and you can't tell us what impartial means because we don't understand the dictionary. And though we have cases all the time where someone says, hey, you treated me unfairly at work. You discriminated on me. And courts find a way to determine if you were discriminating. Like, it's not impossible to look at the data, right? And to say smoke-filled rooms. And see, Jared, and I'm sure you've heard this when you make these appearances and people comment. It's like they take people's money. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They're taking people's money, and then they say, well, you don't really have a say. We overrule your say if we choose to, and you can't complain about it. Am I like jumping to conclusions, or is it that the same way you see it?
Absolutely. I think we're exactly on the same page here. And something you said was very interesting because, the fact that this is going on in court is a big deal. Too often, I think we've seen, not only during the campaign, but, in the aftermath of the campaign and during the new administration, we see the mainstream media, when they don't like a story, what do they say? They call it fake news, right? We hear that over and over again. This is fake news. You shouldn't pay attention to it. Well, you know what? You can't call this fake news because it's happening in a court of law, okay? And so, when you make a statement in court as an officer of the court, you can't back out of that statement. You're held to that. So, Tom Perez, for example, I don't know how many people know this, but very recently, he was interviewed and he actually admitted in an interview that the primaries were rigged. And then, of course, he walked that statement back the next day and said, well, I really didn't mean that, or I made a mistake, or blah, blah, whatever he said. But you can't do that in court. In court, you are bound by a duty to the court as an officer of the court when you are advising the court of the facts and of the law as you understand them. And so by putting these arguments forth, the DNC is articulating its official legal position on these issues. So we're in the process of really nailing down their position, and I think that's very, very important.
Hell yeah, it's it's the most important story or case that I've seen in quite some time, man, because it cuts at the real fabric of, are we going to have a democracy or not? And just since you brought up the fake news thing, I'm just wondering, has CNN or MSNBC contacted you? Why haven't I seen you on those programs? Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, why haven't they had you on?
Well, that's a question for them. I think, we can argue or we can talk about, why that may be. I mean, I just think it's another example of the media blackout that goes on whenever, the mainstream media, which is so invested in the Democratic Party as an organization run by elites for elites. I just think it's an example of the mainstream media blacking out what they don't want to hear. And we saw that again and again throughout the primaries. We see it now in their coverage of the Trump administration. I think they're constantly, chasing down red herrings and ignoring important issues. So, I think it's just one more example where the mainstream media is failing us and where we have to turn to alternative media in order to get the truth.
And I agree with you, Jared, 100%. It's just so it's so disrespectful that they would not. I mean, this is a major case. People watching it, you realize how big this case is, how important this case is. This is about our elections. And as much as they talk about Russia, they say, well, Russia did this, Russia hacked, they threatened our democracy, they hacked our elections, they swayed the vote, and Hillary's back out saying it. This is about elections too, and no one's talking about it. I mean, I saw you on Jordan Sheridan. I think you were with Ed Higgins, a couple other people I know in indie media, but come on, that's not, I just think this is a clear sign, one of the very clear signs, this and Standing Rock on how our media just does not cover information that's very vital to the people. This is blatant. This is, and they keep talking about the elections, and this is about the election. This should be everywhere, folks. Folks, Jared and Elizabeth should be on. They shouldn't even have time for me. They should be able to, they should be like, I'd be able to text Jared, like, Jared, could you respond to this question? Because he should be so busy right now, going everywhere talking about this case. And that also, and I know I'm going on a little bit of rant, Jared, but I just want to drive home for people what this case, when you look at the media, you got to look at what they're talking about, but also what they're not talking about. And this, they are not talking about.